You said, I don't kiss ass. My clients know that. It was honest and had a lot of lawyers nodding. So, how do you think millennial or Gen Z lawyers can push back?
There's a lot of imposter syndrome going around, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
there aren't that many reasons to feel like you belong where you are.
Law school taught you the law, but it didn't teach you this, how to connect. Be that one lawyer who shows up different, the one clients trust, the one they never forget. I'm Neal Goldstein, and this is That One Lawyer Podcast. Let's get started. Today's guest is a lawyer and strategist who's helping shape the legal landscape for an entire generation of online creators. Frank Poe is the founder of Poe Law, PLLC, where he serves influencers, athletes, talent agencies, and content entrepreneurs navigating the complexities of brand deals, social media disputes, and intellectual property. He's part litigator, part strategist, and part creative with a unique background that includes working as a talent agent and a GC in the entertainment space. Frank is one of the few lawyers carving out a truly modern niche in law, one built on authenticity, transparency, and collaboration. He's not just practicing law, he's building a legal bridge for creators to do what they love safely and smartly. Frank, welcome to That One Lawyer Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Neal. And I think I do all that in 7 days a week. I thought I had 9-day weeks. So,
Well, I have to tell you, I have to tell the audience that I don't know Frank that long. We met on a roundtable event that we try to regularly do through Lawyers Stories and Benny Gold, who created that. And, I've met some really interesting people. And I thought Frank was really forthright on the roundtable. He shared a lot. I thought he was very authentic. And that's why I think he's great for this show and for our audience. So, Frank, I know this is going to be a really interesting discussion, especially since you're probably doing things that many of our people aren't doing, but we're going to show them how similar what you do and what they want to do can really help, based on your advice. So let's start with your backstory. Can you give us a little bit about your background?
yes, absolutely. So, and what you'll find is that, I didn't wake up, as a young infant and suddenly emerge into the creator economy. I mean, there was a long and twisted path that I may share with a lot of listeners, a lot of people out there. Actually, I have your book right here. I
Oh,
read it
great.
about a year ago. I meant to dig in some more again, and but the messages really resonate about how I'm not the son of a big law partner or anything like that. My grandfather's a music teacher. My mom teaches ballet, has danced ballet all her life. I'm surrounded by artists and creators and wonderful creative people. Even my wife, she's an OBGYN, but she plays instrumental music for community bands. So the list goes on. And for me to lock down and kind of button up the shirt and become a lawyer is sort of it's a slight departure. Right? I had to kind of carve that path. Kind of started out in undergrad. I determined originally was going to go into the Navy. I was going to be an officer, and I was a Sea Cadet, when I was a teenager, which meant kind of like the Boy Scouts, but for the Navy. So I really had a different path. And then during Rutgers undergrad, I just fell in love with philosophy. I think there's that sort of old trope where people go to law school because they love to argue.
Right.
And I think most people look down at that because I think that usually means they like to bicker. But I think if you formally approach philosophy in terms of putting premises together to come to a conclusion, you form an argument. I think that actually is a really great prerequisite to going to law school and becoming a lawyer. So I figured law school was for me around graduation of undergrad. And when I went in, the first thing I thought of was, well, who am I going to serve, right? Who are my clients? And I was really motivated by the people around me, all the creatives around me. There's no secret that Entourage was on HBO at the time. So the entertainment business really did call out to me. I felt like, why not? I even chose my law school because it was close to Tribeca Film Festival. And so I devoted most of my time to learn as much as I could about the entertainment business while I was in law school. I did do some incredible internships there. I was working for a talent manager for a little while. I went and did a summer paid internship program for United Talent Agency in Beverly Hills. And then I went into an IP firm in my third year as an intern. And then when I got out, the first sort of job that I had in the entertainment business, I was a talent agent. So I was booking live celebrity reality TV personalities, DJs, celebrity DJs, that kind of thing for a talent agency. And yeah, I did that, and that's really where I learned how to pick up a telephone and learn how to use the telephone. Right, something that seems very scary at first, but then over time you just get used to it. And then after that, there was a period of time where sort of Live Nation started gobbling up all the promoters, so my buyers started shrinking and shrinking. So I said, okay, well, it's time to kind of move on. Went and did a little bit of nonprofit work for a while in New Jersey, and it was interesting because I was booking job opportunities for blind students for the Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and they would do like these work programs. So I was helping set that up for a while, and then I went into traditional law practice. I was a general litigator for about 5 years. I was bouncing in between like different Brooklyn law firms, and then eventually to a Princeton law firm, where I was defending Home Depot and some of the bigger Fortune 500s for a while. And then in 2019, the agency that I was at originally called me back and said, well, we're doing all influencer now. We have about 9 agents, and they are capturing budgets for brands. They're bringing it to all the talent managers for these influencers and cutting these deals. And we need legal. We need to build our legal team. We need to have the contracts in place and to ensure that we develop the proper sort of standard operating procedures and all of the different aspects of the business. And we need you to do it. Because I had the long history with them and I kept up with them, always mend your bridges. I jumped at the chance, and I was there for about 4 years or so. And then after COVID, I think a lot of the agents went off and they started their own businesses. The agency itself sort of went through its own transitional phase, and in November of 2023, they said, "All right, we're changing our priorities. Move along or whatever." And in December, I hung my shingle. So I was like, I'm not going to light a match to these wonderful network that I built over the past couple of years. So from there, I was able to sort of build my book and kind of get back into the swing of things. Just, instead of submitting resumes, run my own practice.
And you and I both went to New York Law School, and
Yes.
just to share probably just a little bit of what we might have had in common back in law school, even though we probably went about 20 years apart. So my favorite elective was entertainment law. And I really thought that was going to be it for me. In fact, I got a subscription to Variety magazine, and I figured, okay, I'm in. I thought it was really cool. And very quickly, I realized that this was not going to be easy, as I'm sure you are well aware. But
Yeah.
I wasn't, I already had experience in PI work. So I decided it wasn't really for me. But even when I started working for a big PI law firm after law school, they let me do some work for VLA, Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts.
Oh, yes.
And I did do some work, but I didn't really know where it was going to go. Probably should have stayed with it, and focused as you have, but I didn't. And I'm glad that you did, because now you can tell me where I went wrong and and help other people. So what is it about creator content lawyering, which nobody knew about when I was in law school? It was just entertainment law. So maybe that's
Yeah.
a further subset of an entertainment lawyer. But what was it about that really, spoke to you?
I think it was the fact that it was so new. I think originally when I kind of got called back to the agency to go in house, at the time, really the only thing we could talk about was like FTC compliance. Very
Right.
basic, crude, like
Right.
what we know today is almost so fundamental. But I think that what really intrigued me was that exactly right. The entertainment law world, the traditional entertainment, and then the new creator economy it's so important to distinguish those things. So I feel like going in with my entertainment law background and having trained in that and understanding those concepts, I found myself distinguishing the new creator economy with the entertainment law. And I felt that was a really fun and compelling exercise, because I'd look at the scenarios and I'd say, wait a minute, these traditional concepts don't work here. And now you're in the education business. Now you're in the business of going to everyone from Fortune 500s to early stage startup brands saying, listen, this is how these creators operate. They're totally different. You don't own the studio, right? The creator owns everything. They're the production, they're the director, they're the editor, they're the distributor. And so that perspective is so different. And I said, well, this is really intriguing because now I can look at entertainment law from an entirely new lens, and pun intended, and also, and develop a whole different world, along with my business side. There was a lot of the agents that I love working with, and I still work with today. I mean, there's some of them that I've worked with for years now, and I think I've always been intrigued with the creativity that they've had to come up with all these interesting things, and then I'd have to add the law to it, and that was really fun. It's a really great collaboration.
I think you said your dad was also a music teacher or something. Did you say that?
So my grandfather taught in Frenchtown and Milford. That's my mother's father.
Right.
So he was an instrumental music teacher. He was also a drummer. He, after World War II, he, played in a band. And, my mom has danced and taught ballet all her life. She runs her own business teaching, in like the Princeton area.
And your wife plays, right?
My wife plays music, and that's like her other side of the brain, right? She's got the scientific, medical brain, and then she's got the music side, which is wonderful. She's, I love her for all those reasons.
that certainly couldn't have hurt, having, that type of background and growing up and marrying into that world to some extent. I mean, that had to also set the stage.
Support system. My wife and I met at Rutgers in undergrad, and we started dating around the time that she got accepted to med school. So we took the journey together. She went to med school, I went to law school, and she's been with me ever since. We're coming up on like 20 years of being together in October, and
congrats.
We've just held each other up and in such a supportive and helpful way, and we've always had each other's back, and that's really important.
Frank, do you think New York Law School gave you the tools necessary to do what you're doing now?
Yes and no. I'm going to say it this way, and it's not specifically at New York Law School, but it's I think all law schools. I think they empower you. I think they give you an opportunity to kind of see the open world and try to make it your own. I didn't do on-campus interviews. I didn't do moot court. I didn't try for law review. So I didn't try to take advantage of a lot of those things that maybe other people should. But what I did do was I used sort of my law student card to sort of have a license to crash. I would go to all the CLEs. I'd go to, try to rub elbows with lawyers and understand more about them, and use that sort of basic, I'm studying law all day, I want to know what you do at in the evenings I go to these events. And I think centrally, New York Law School is very centralized to do that. I was offered, I was able to go to other schools that weren't that weren't in the city. They were outside. And if I went to those law schools, I might have had to rely upon more of the internal opportunities to make my way, as opposed to just say, like, this is my home base and I'm going to try and work with the environment around me.
You've built a firm based on you. It's you built your legal brand is personal. It's Frank Poe, and it's not some law firm brand. And so, do you think that young lawyers today need to do that? Do you think they need to lean on who they are, their personal brand, as opposed to the law firm brand? And I think a lot of people are doing that. That's what's giving you this niche now, as you just said before. A lot of this is coming down to content creators. Do you think that lawyers also need to lean in on their personal brand?
I do, and I think I'll even just be specific to the creator economy, because the creator economy operates on authenticity. I think it's what the creators understand. They know that if they can authentically tie the brand opportunities to their audience and leverage that, that's their bread and butter. That's how they live. So as a lawyer in their world, as a guest in their world, if I speak their language and I operate within their rules in that way, and I make it about me and the personal brand as sort of there are other playbooks. I've seen attorneys in the space. They're like the $75 lawyers, right? And that's how they put themselves out there. I don't know what they do, but I know them from their price tag. That's not exactly my playbook. It's not how I would do things, just because I do want it to be more personal. I want to have a relationship long before you're signing my retainer. That's majorly important to me, because I think that there's so many like landmines and so many different ways that we can approach how to work together, that it doesn't make sense for me to just say, here's my transaction, here's what I'm offering, get it done, and that's it.
I agree with you. Authenticity is key. But let's be honest, when you go online, you see a lot of inauthentic stuff going on, and
Yeah.
stuff that really seems to often we resonates more. So, you might see flashy reels with somebody in another country. I've seen, I'm not going to mention anybody in particular, but I've seen lawyer accounts with literally hundreds of thousands of followers, allegedly,
Right.
that show them hanging out in the south of France, or driving a sports car, or wearing the flashiest clothes. How does that make you feel when you see that?
It makes me wonder what they do. Like, I honestly, I mean, here I sell my website's very wordy. I made it myself. I'm as proud of it as I could be, right? I'm not a website designer, but it talks about the work. It talks about, what actually gets accomplished, as opposed to a concept of like wish fulfillment. There's this idea that your audience is somehow getting their wish fulfilled by being affiliated with you because you're doing the thing. So if you connect with them, they can do the thing. That's really not, I mean, I'm not equipped to do that. I have never been to the south of France. I'd love to go. That's sort of a family trip, and we're going to see
Right.
what happens. I have a 4-year-old, right? How am I supposed to get to the south of France tomorrow? But like, so I got to work with what I have. But at the same
Right.
time, I think that I have to lean into, it's the work. People will know me because I get it done, right? And then let the other people kind of flash around and everything. It's just their playbook. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them having that, because at the end of the day, maybe they do, crack open their laptop beachside and actually get the contract done. That's fine. If they can do it, more power to them. That's their
Yeah.
way. But I think that I think we have to acknowledge and accept that there will be multiple playbooks, and I'm not going to let it affect me per se. But
Right.
I do know that I have to stick to mine.
I looked at your website, and I thought it was really interesting because
I'm so
just what you
sorry.
said. No, I'll tell you what it did, because not knowing a lot about the industry, right there, as soon as I was able to go on, I was educated within 60 seconds. I was able to see what each part of the process is, and what you have to do, and what you have to understand. And I actually thought it was really good. So kudos to
Thank you.
you for doing that. But I also know that you're very active on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
so you posted recently that something that really hit me hard. And when I say hit me hard, it made an impression, and I loved it. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. Well, maybe I am, because I liked it, and I liked you, and I thought this was really cool. You said, I don't kiss ass. My clients know that. It was honest and had a lot of lawyers nodding. But younger lawyers often are taught to keep their head down and say yes. So how do you think millennial or Gen Z lawyers can push back or set boundaries without getting labeled as difficult?
They are operating, and I feel like, as a millennial, right? I think we were called the entitled generation, and then Gen Z came along, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like everybody kind of passes that down.
Right.
But I will say that there is a legitimate concept of there's a lot of imposter syndrome going around, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
there aren't that many reasons to feel like you belong where you are, because there is a lot of groundbreaking going on. And what happens there is there's this need to find a foothold and to find some security. And what that will do to a person is have them rely upon whatever is above them, right? I think that in the creator economy, we have this situation where lots of brands will hire very young, and for positions like a social media manager or something like that, and those folks are just getting into the working world. Maybe they have a few years, and they are at the mercy of a C-suite that doesn't know anything about the space. But at the same time, it's hard for this younger person to really guide them, educate them, and exert authority. So I think it comes from needing empowerment. I think they need to be empowered where it's due. I mean, it's not, you don't just blow smoke up everybody, but you do want to give them some kind of justifiable empowerment, saying, listen, here are here are the resources available, cite these and say, here are the reasons, here's what we're trying to see. And that's kind of what my mission is in a lot of ways, is to make professional services in this space accessible more so, and give more resources to empower people to build onto what we have, get this Wild West notion out of the door, and get into a world where you say, with authority, this is how things are supposed to be done.
The takeaway for me from that LinkedIn post, and
Yeah.
I recommend that everybody go to your LinkedIn page and look at that. This is a partnership, which is what I
Yeah.
always think of with a personal injury client or potential client. If we're not going to get along, or if I don't feel the chemistry is right, it's not going to work. So I'm going to pass, and you can go to somebody else. So
Yeah.
what I got from you was, I know what I could do, and we'll know pretty soon after we speak at our first conversation whether this is going to work. So obviously, you have certain feelings about who you want to work with,
Yeah.
and that makes sense. And I say to them the good, bad, and the ugly. I don't only tell them what they want to hear. I
Right.
tell them, is this going to be successful or not? Can it be successful? Maybe it won't be successful at all, and I say that to them. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. I assume that that's in part what that post was about.
Yeah, well, 100%. No, it's for me. It was, in some ways, I was trying to also buck this notion of, there is a lot of talk and a lot of conventional wisdom of, you got to be a lawyer of yes today. You can't be, Mr. No and Mr. Downer all the time as a lawyer. And I say yes and no, right? There's nuance to that. Like,
Right,
I am
sure.
a yes lawyer. I always try to figure out ways to get it done for the client and all that stuff. But then there is just that filter, right? There are those red flags that the client's relying upon me to like run it through the legal filter, right? I said that, there's the
Right.
business filter where they've decided the money is right, the terms are right, we can accomplish this. Okay, legal, do you see any red flags here on your side of it from your
Right.
lens?
Right.
And that's what my clients always ask of me. And I never, I don't BS them and throw them into a deal as a yes man, and then suddenly now it's at their peril. I would never do that. And I think that's, I mean, self-preservation, but at the same time, I think, it just kind of counterbalances that sort of recent conventional wisdom that it's all about, yes, 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 and just get it done and get the deal done. It's like, yeah, but we have a responsibility. We have a filter that we have to run things through as well. And I think that's important. And I think that, like you're saying, like the younger folks who are getting into this, they should feel empowered and remember that they have a role, and that they, let us cook, let us
Well,
do what we got to do, right?
I was just going to say, I was just going to say that, you said in that same post, obviously everybody knows that I like it. I keep on referring to it, where you say, let me cook, which I think is some kind of Gen Z expression for
Yeah.
let me do what I got to do best.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to be micromanaged. If we trust each other, and I think this is another point you were saying, if we trust each other, you will let me do what I have to do, and I will keep you advised along the way, which is a problem for a lot of clients with lawyers. And I will be honest with you and straightforward with you.
You look at it from a litigation standpoint, and I don't litigate as much as I used to, but I tell
Right.
every client, I say, listen, if I have to make a threat in a letter or whatever,
Right.
I have to carry it out, right? There is never a situation where I'm going to tell the other side something and then I'm going to back it off or whatever. Like, you have to know that, right?
Right.
And that's a sense of trust as well, is really trust and integrity. That is our currency as lawyers,
Sure.
and then you get
Sure.
into the creator space and you have the authenticity as another kind of currency, and all of that comes together as being as straightforward. And look, I mean, millennials were kind of dished as like BS detectors, right? We've
Right.
gotten
Oh,
supposedly we've
100%.
gotten hosed so many times, so we're really good at like rooting that kind of stuff out. So it doesn't pay to put your integrity sort of on the gambling table. Like, you really should just like we're saying, like, let me cook, let me put that trust in what we're doing.
What I kind of wanted to bring up earlier, but now it seems maybe a better transition to do that is, in the personal injury world, I'm probably criticized. I know I've been criticized by my brethren because I spend too much time with my clients. That's true. I mean, I do spend a lot of time with my clients. I spend an hour with them having coffee at times, and sometimes I spend 2 hours with them talking about their case, of which 90% of that time we're just talking about the world, and the other, 10% is talking about the case and how it might go. The point is, I try to create these bonds with potential clients that I think I could really work with, and who could really use the help.
Hmm.
And obviously, a lot of lawyers think I shouldn't be doing that, but it's created a personal brand for me. The reason that I think that, you know, your point of view is really important here is they need to do the same thing with their clients. I'm sure you feel the same way. You have to have this really connected relationship with your client. You got to know who they are, right?
Yeah.
What they like, what they don't like, so that, you know, when you're going into negotiations, you have, you know, you know their mindset. You know what their desires are, what they want to do, what they don't want to do. I would think that your relationship building is key to your success.
Yes. I mean, it's funny because there are, I could say that sometimes my worst prospective clients are some of my best referrals, right? By establishing a relationship, it is about relationships. And look, I can stare at contracts all day, but that can get boring. I mean, like
Right,
there are times where maybe it's good to get out and connect and shake hands and really get to know people and have that coffee. And I
right,
I do it all the time for
right.
law students. It doesn't matter, right? I think that's important to really remain connected and available. I don't know if you're familiar with Bronx Tale, but
Right,
availability and all that, a great
right.
movie, and I think that's extremely important. Availability is important, and you're a part of a community. You're either a part of it or you're not. And by I think to kind of validate your approach, even as whether your personal injury on defense or plaintiff side, whichever, like I think developing those relationships and being a part of that community is extremely important.
Yes, you're right. But there's so many lawyers out there that don't get it, that simply don't get it. It's just transactional for them. And they just want to move from one client to the next. As soon as I settle the case for this client, I don't need to deal with them again. I don't need to talk to them again. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, I did personal injury for a while, and it's a thing, right? You do the intake, you have them sign all the docs, all the HIPAAs, all that fun stuff, and
Right,
then you send them out to treat for however long they need to treat. I was like, look, your health comes first.
right,
Go take care of your
right,
injuries. Go take care
right,
of all your stuff, and then people forget about them, right? And then you don't
right,
suit it until like a year later or
right,
whatever it is.
right,
But what's to stop you from? I mean, who cares? Like, I think that within that period of time, checking in on them, seeing how they're doing, having coffee with them,
yep,
developing a relationship, the time is there. I mean, I know that you might have 49 other cases that you have to attend to, and that it can be a very high volume because I guess that's how they make it's an economic thing for them. Maybe it's for them it's the score really. If they could just get a couple of good cases settled that year, that covers their world, and so they have to feel that way. But I think maybe to your credit, they're sacrificing opportunities to connect and to really round out who they are in their practice. So their criticism just comes from maybe the fact that that's what they get out of doing personal injury, because maybe personal injury is not, to them, not their first choice or something. And
right.
that's maybe they look at the money and they're like, well, at least I got the money. Right. And I think that might be very possible for a lot of lawyers out there as their perspective. And if that's the case, then my recommendation is kind of your recommendation is get out there and maybe connect with these people and that'll make you a better human.
Well,
Right, like
and not only will it make you a better human, but now all of a sudden you're going to have free PR. If it's not done in an underhanded way or a Machiavellian way, if it's done in an honest and an authentic way, if you take this type of philosophy and really digest it, what you're going to have in a year or 2 years are 50 people out there who are going to be singing your song, how great you are. That's better than anything that you could pay Google to do for you. Because,
yeah.
Google can maybe bring a phone call to you, uh, but ultimately, the retainer has to be signed. A lot of people see through bullshit very quickly. If you're not the type of guy that is going to click with them, you're not getting that retainer signed.
Yeah, and this we're in the age of, I mean, social media, right?
Right.
So each time you make those connections and in the social media world, assuming they're not talking about their case on social media, whatever, but generally, like it amplifies significantly. Maybe 20 years ago or whatever, we would be saying a different thing. Like, yeah, I mean, it's good, but you have to watch the numbers. But now, each client that can sing you praises and does it on social media just carries you even further. So
Sure.
why would you shut that down? Why would you cut that short? You know?
So, we can't obviously ignore digital because digital is an essential part of the world now, part of the
Yeah.
economy. So, how do you, in your practice, how do you marry, if you will, both your authentic self, your personal brand, with digital?
obviously you want to have multiple platforms. I think that helps. I think there's a difference between kind of like what you used to do physically. If you show up to an office, you act one way. If you show up to a bar, you act another way. Similar with a platform. If I show up on LinkedIn, well, you get me, right? You get kind of spicy, like hot take, but like professional realm. If you
Right.
go on my Instagram, hey, you might get a couple pictures of my son playing with Play-Doh. You might get me,
Right.
doing some kind of crazy thing. I love collecting vinyl, so I'm playing a lot of records on there now lately.
Right.
And then Threads is just sort of like unhinged, jokey, posting memes, kind of having fun with things. And so you kind of get what you get wherever you go. If you want to catch me on it, but believe it or not, I've found clients on Threads, which is
Yeah.
the Instagram offshoot,
Sure.
the alternative to Twitter, and I love Threads. It has just a great algorithm for finding people. I mean, just type in content creator in a post, and suddenly your whole feed is flooded with it.
Right.
So you don't know where the clients will come from, but they're going to see different sides of you. And I think part of that is, you provide the context and you understand the context that you're in. I have heard recently that some people treat LinkedIn like a dating site. They'll go into DMs, they'll go, "Oh, you're very professional, but what are you doing Thursday night?" It's like, wow, right? A
Wow. I
very,
I didn't hear
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's
Things
unbelievable. Yeah.
things are happening like that. LinkedIn is kind of
But
losing, not losing,
I
but their foundations are a little shaky because of that kind of behavior, right? And I wouldn't do that.
and it's funny. I think I also read an earlier post of yours, and I don't recall exactly what it said, but I think you said that Gen Zers are now moving towards other platforms, smaller platforms, and I think one was called, is it Strave or something like that?
Strava. I think I
Strava.
downloaded the app. It's a workout app. It's kind of like a Map My Run, but
Right.
I think it has a social component. I just downloaded because I just started biking again.
Right.
Yeah, after 4 years of having a 4 year old, I finally get to
Well,
exercise now.
you're better
Um,
than me. Go ahead.
I'm doing my
Yeah.
best. So
Yeah.
like I downloaded this app and it works pretty well. But
But
yeah, I
but
think
you
that wasn't. Yeah,
yeah, you indicated that many younger people are moving away from what they now see as corporate kind of social media.
yeah, that was one of my Sunday scaries.
That's right, Sunday scaries.
I was posting it was an article about that very
Right.
topic, and it was enlightening to me too. I'm like, wow, they're tired of all the corporatizing of the big baddies, right? The Meta and the X
Right.
and all that stuff, and
Right.
the cult of personality from their leaders, all this other
Right.
stuff, and they were
Right.
like, we just want to be social. We just want like very, very bare bones. And so they went to these smaller startup platforms and they're using that. And that's not where the commerce is, right? I probably would have fewer contracts to deal with on those platforms.
Right. Right.
Um, but I understand the inclination to want to go there for other reasons. To kind of have different contexts, to treat each platform differently and be differently, like act differently on those platforms.
Do you see a shift? Do you see 5 years from now a shift in in the platform race?
I think that there is always a shift. I think that's never stopped happening. Um, we'll take it all the way back. I had a Zanga.
Hmm.
I had a MySpace.
Right.
I got into Facebook. Facebook changed in front of our eyes a million times.
Right. Right.
Instagram came along. Snapchat is back and forth and back and forth. Pinterest. I just did a Pinterest training yesterday with some really
Really.
wonderful people.
Hmm.
Creator Economy NYC did a nice little webinar on Pinterest. So platforms are not evergreen forever and ever and ever. I mean,
Right.
YouTube being one exception, you
Right.
know. But I think even with TikTok, I mean, we've as lawyers have had to cover what's been going on with TikTok and what's happening and
Right.
how wild that is. So
Sure.
I think the answer is yes, and it's just a question of how dynamic is the change. Are we
Right.
going to just drop these platforms tomorrow? Is the government going to shut the platform down? That kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Or is it like just organically we're all just going to kind of move on because we're just done with this platform?
What do you suggest for younger lawyers who maybe have a limited budget?
In personal injury, I don't think you know where your next client is going to come from. You don't know who's going to get hurt next.
Correct.
In the IP in the creator economy, you kind of have to know your landscape. You have to know where to go. You have to find the events. You have to. So your approach, if you're of limited means,
Hmm.
your approach should be to do more research and to identify who your potential clients could be.
Right.
and I think that matters. That goes across the board for all law practice. I feel like that dichotomy is real. There are
Right.
some law practices where you don't know where your next client's going to come from, and there are some practices where you kind of should know based upon the landscape that's in front of you. Maybe if you're in construction law, you know who the contractors are, who the subcontractors are, that kind of a thing. It's sort of by analogy.
Right.
Um, and then gravitate towards those industry events and those industry sort of, and you find what works within your budget to connect. I mean, you can't join every professional networking firm there is.
Right.
You can't,
Right.
they're expensive. Things are expensive. So you have to work within your budget, but become more focused. And I think, if young people are looking at maybe multiple kinds of practices, maybe they want to be more in the general practice type of field, which is happening less and less, obviously, but
Right.
maybe focus on the areas of law initially that has that ability to pinpoint and identify clients that exist, as opposed to the ones who can only show up tomorrow out of nowhere, right? That might be one strategy to implement.
So
A lot of internet research and connectivity. Yeah.
and I know you go to events too, because I've seen that, and
Yeah.
content creator events. And how does that work for you?
It's great. I'm going to one tonight. There's a Dream Build Connect. They're based out of New York, and it's mostly a lot of creators. There's some managers who might have a small roster of folks. I love going to these events because, again, it's like I might just be like the one. There aren't that many lawyers in this space, and so for me, it's a wide opportunity to connect with potential clients. But I think it's also on a less business side of things, a less salesy side of things. It's a way to connect and just support the community and understand where they're coming from and listen to them and just really get all that important information that will help serve everybody. I think that's part that participation and showing up is very vital.
Is that where you get your clients, or or do you get your clients multiple different avenues?
There are multiple avenues, but I will say that in person definitely helps. What will end up happening is I'll get stuff from LinkedIn or Threads or something, but it came from the fact that I was at an event and maybe they
Right.
heard about it. And I've heard people come up to me. They were like, "Yeah, I mentioned you to somebody at another event that you weren't
Right.
at," and they
Right.
were like, "Oh, we need one of those," right?
Right.
So it's one of those things where if you put yourself in the rumor mill and the grapevine and you stay
Right.
present and you show up, even if you're not there, then there's that opportunity to be mentioned.
So even within the digital world, which you're in, you're telling people, young or even older, get out, get
Yeah,
out there and meet people. So you're you're going back to old school. I'm with you on that, and connect with people face to face, because at the
yeah.
end of the day, that's how it's really going to happen. Not not necessarily through digital. Digital might help you, might introduce people to you, but then you got to do more work.
100%. Well, digital is a way to manage your community, but
Right.
to build your community, I think it's kind of like analogously to when people have writer's block.
Right.
Writers having writer put the pen down and go live
Right.
life. You have to get
Right.
out into the world and live
Right.
life so you have something to write about.
Right.
Same thing for the digital world and digital creators. Get out into the world and experience things. I mean, you
Right.
see these influencers, they're posting about places that they're visiting and vacations that they're taking. They're not posting about their screen. They're
Right.
posting about the world around them. And so
Right.
you have to embrace and digest the world around you in a significant way. And there's no exception here. Like
Right.
lawyers have to do it, accountants have to do it. Everybody has to get out there and pull themselves away from what they do on the day to day to enhance what they do on the day to day.
You're obviously an expert in creator space, and you're on many of these platforms either actively or inactively, but you're
Yeah.
on them. You must see legal um, blind spot over and over again that younger lawyers or content creators are missing. What's one legal spot that you gets you frustrated when you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I see the creator economy world kind of like kind of like at the end of the Matrix, where all you can see is the cascading code around him, and
Right.
it's just such a different lens than maybe an influencer sees just videos and pictures and everything. I just see the world differently, and so I see people acting in ways that, um, it's like, are you protecting yourself? Are you it really does come back to it comes back to the agreements. Like everything that you see posted about, it's executed very well, but then underneath it, it's what kind of rights did they give up? Did
Hmm.
they violate their expectations about, you know, um, keeping quiet or keeping mum about, maybe a confidential thing they weren't supposed to release or something, or it's all that kind of stuff. Are they providing too much content for not enough, or whatever it may be? So I'm seeing that there's a lot of in that space, just sort of ensuring that you lock down what you're, the different aspects of what you're agreeing to, and that's
And I'm assuming, when you talk about that stuff, you're also including AI, which is now, obviously front and center.
yeah.
And I'm sure you're dealing with that on your with your expertise as well.
AI is funny because, in the creator world, because we thrive on authenticity,
Hmm.
it's almost like a mutual assured destruction. The brands don't want it, and the creators don't want it. And even if they were to implement some kind of, learning, some kind of process to kind of enhance what they're doing, maybe they have somebody writing up the scripts, like they use ChatGPT to write a script.
Hmm.
They have to kind of go back and make it their own, because they don't want to put their integrity, and they don't want to put their credibility up for question. And the brands don't want that either. They're like, we're paying you, we're not paying you ChatGPT to do this. And the rise of these sort of AI influencers doesn't really make sense in our community, because that's just another cartoon mascot, right? It's another Trix rabbit, or whatever, right? Like it's something concocted by the brand that is controlled by the brand. So that's not the same thing as what we're doing here. It's our thing is sort of the creator economy. By necessity, by categorical necessity, it has to be a human being doing it.
Correct.
Otherwise, it makes no sense.
So where do you see AI in its proper place?
I always joke about, as like, I always see it as, cyborgs, not robots. I think that, you know AI should not be taking over anyone's job. It should just be enhancing what they do. As a lawyer, maybe there are AI tools, and I've come across a few. I mean, come across millions because they pitch them, but I come across a few that I think are kind of useful if done a certain way, but only to the extent that maybe it speeds up certain, unnecessary processes. I have yet to implement them on my side. I have my ways, and I'll get there. I'm an old man, but no,
What does
but
that
I
what does that make me?
it makes you kneel. No,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no. But it takes time. I mean, lawyers especially, it takes us time to kind of adapt, and because we're trying to be so careful. But I think that AI does have a place in maybe enhancing what it is that people do, and maybe save on, I don't know, maybe like a way to correct things so that people don't have to go back and reshoot if they make a mistake or an error. It could be editing, it could be some kind of AI or some kind of AI generated thing that can kind of help them. I see that as valuable, because those kinds of things everybody wants to avoid. The brand would
Right,
agree to it, the creator would agree to it. So AI has a place.
right.
I think that as the hype kind of dies down, the way NFTs did, where we'll see where the really functional and appropriate places for them
I know
are.
you're married, you have a kid, and you have a life outside of being the lawyer that you are. How do you
Yeah.
balance it all? What's your secret?
So it's, around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, unless I have an event to go to.
Right.
Everything shuts down. We do dinner. I put my son to bed. I give him a bath. I put him to bed. I hang out with my wife. Worst case scenario is if I have to do a call at night. Maybe it's a West Coast thing or something. It very rarely happens. And so I just have that time carved out. There are days where I just kind of forget what I did all day. I just get in the zone and be present. It's actually kind of a catch-22, because I'm so focused and in the moment that maybe the messages from my wife I don't see right away, but then when I'm with her, that's it. Like, I don't see anything else on the outside. I'm very focused and present in the moment. I think you should always be that way. Ironically, yes, coming from a social media and that kind of environment, you'd think that that's not true, but you should have that sort of sense of catching yourself looking at your phone too much. Even
Yeah.
my son, we don't do screens very much with him.
Right.
It's mostly like, he has occasional TV shows and everything, and we make it an event out of it.
Right.
We don't make it a
Right.
crutch or anything like that.
Right.
So I think really kind of having those sort of classic mindset of just being present and in the moment serves everything. It serves me as
Right.
a lawyer, and it serves me as a person.
Somebody was telling me that you were talking about something that happened with a Real Housewife clip, and it sounds like it's a lesson for young lawyers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Was this the I don't know if it was the thing that I handled, but
Or maybe you
um
were talking about it
I
with
might have
somebody.
referred to it. Yeah, I mean, well,
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff happens, right? First of all, value, right? Imputed
Right.
value of what these things are.
Right.
I think there was the one thing that I can call out is the Emily Ratajkowski case where I think she hung up an image of herself, a framed image of an Instagram post of herself,
Right.
and there was this issue of, well, someone took her photo, so they owned the underlying rights
Right.
to it, and
Right.
then it's her likeness, but then she took the photo of the photo, or somebody owned that, and then there's just this wild sort of I love those sort of brain teasers, especially in the legal world, because then we have to unpack all these things,
Right. Right. Right.
akin to the music business and publishing and all that.
Sure.
There are, yeah, I mean, look, these things happen all the time. I mean, we've had instances where brands. One of the bigger issues is brands overuse the license. Sometimes they use the wrong video and they post it somewhere they're not supposed to. And where we had an issue where there was an influencer was divorcing. It was in a divorce proceeding, and the kids wound up in the video. It was the wrong video posted, and it went up on some like gambling websites and stuff like that. And I said, the brand, and it was the brand's fault. So it was like the brand
Right.
has to sort this. They have
Right.
to feel like they don't realize how much damage they're doing.
Right. Right.
These are the kinds of fires that I have to put out in addition
Right.
to reviewing the agreement. I have to make sure that the fires go out as well.
Sure.
So it's that responsibility. Sometimes I have to be the den mother. I have to say, no, this is
Right.
ridiculous, or I have to,
Right.
kind of steer everybody in the right direction. So
So, what's the one thing you tell a lawyer listening right now, something that could make them stand out as that one lawyer?
I always tell people to show up. I say, you have to take up space. You have to be present. And it's interesting how you can do that now for people who want to be in the music business. That's the easiest thing. How many bands tell their coworkers at their day job, "Hey, please come out to my show. It's Thursday night."
Right.
They're begging everybody. Imagine you just show up and you go backstage saying, "Hey,
Right.
I
Right.
loved your set. I loved your thing."
Yeah.
Same thing with social media. You could just say, I go up to creators all the time. How can I support your channel? How can I support your thing?
Right.
What channel do I follow on Instagram,
Right.
whatever? And they love it. And I think as a lawyer, if you want to get into this space or even in other areas, show up, be interested in what your client is up to, even if it's not on the legal side of things. Figure out a way to be present in their lives, and they're not going to forget you.
And if you can go back and talk to yourself, what would you say, knowing everything that you know today?
I am where I am because of all the ups and the downs and everything. It's fatalism's kind of funny that way, but I would say that I remind myself to be patient. I think this road was long and twisty and everything, but at the same time, I feel like I've been doing what I've been doing forever. So I don't feel like I lost time because it took time to get here. So I think, I feel like patience has always been my superpower. I've been very patient with clients and all sorts of
That's great.
situations. And so I think just reminding myself that it is your superpower. Keep being patient. It's not, patience isn't waiting, right? It's knowing that the time isn't now. It's knowing that it's later on, and that you just have to build yourself up to that point. And that's
Great.
what it's all about.
Yep, I agree. So the final one is there someone that you've lost personally or professionally who you'd want one more conversation with? And if so, what would you say to them?
That's a good one. I mean, between, look, I've lost family members, and I would have loved to some of them to have seen, even my grandfather and everything, to have seen, and my grandmother to have seen where I am now. Versus, I think that's a dream everybody has, right? That you always want that, that unconditional love to see you, how far you've come because of that, right? And I
Mhm.
think that that's always an important thing. But even some of your clients, even some of my clients, I remember when I was back in the agency world, I had a very difficult talent who had a very difficult manager, who were both being very difficult with me. And I think I failed them to the extent that I just wasn't experienced enough, and they just needed so much more from me than what even my boss was willing to authorize. They were like, just too much. And I feel like nowadays I could have handled that in such a different way.
Yeah.
And if they could see me now, kind of thing. I know that they're still out there, but it's okay. I don't need them to talk to me about it. But I think if I were what I am now, then I think things would have gone differently.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, how do people contact you if somebody wants to work with you? And I'm sure a lot of people might be interested in that. How do people get in touch with you? How do they speak to you? How do they follow you?
It's mandatory that everyone has to know that polaw.co is not polaw.com. It's .co. People make that mistake, and I'm like, no. But
Yes.
look, polaw.com was going to be like $500 more or something. I don't know what
Right.
it was, but who knows? Maybe one day I'll get that. But LinkedIn is, I mean, we've said it a few times, right? Find me on LinkedIn. My name's very easy to spell and easy to find.
Mhm.
I am, I don't mean to plug, but look, I loved your book. But I am also working on a book of my own.
That's
And I
great.
think that's important to, it's about the creator economy. It's about what I do on the
Sure.
daily. It's analyzing the agreements and everything like that. But I think that that's another way to connect. I think that's a way for me to be present with people without actually having to be there and like actually, be everywhere at once. I'd love to connect with people that way or when it comes out and everything like that. But in the meantime, yeah, you can follow me on socials. I will say that, Threads is where I just post funny stuff.
Right.
Instagram is where I am a little bit more sort of rounded human, and LinkedIn is more professional and I guess spicier. But those are the main areas. And then you could always email me or DM me.
Yeah, Frank, I'm thrilled that we had this conversation. It really was helpful to hear from somebody who's completely out of the personal injury world and to see how much we have in common. And I'm sure plenty of people have learned something from what we've talked about here. And I hope we can cross paths again, either at the round table or maybe having dinner one night. That would be great. But it went just as I expected. And thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for having me, Neal. You're a great guy, and I love joining you wherever you are. And hopefully the next time it'll be at a bar in New York or something
Oh
where we
yeah,
have a
that
nice
sounds good.
event and we'll hang out. But I love. Hey, look, I have fun too, right?
Great.
But I really appreciate it, and I hope to do this again sometime.
If something here hits home for you, don't keep it to yourself. Tap subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with a lawyer who needs to really hear it. This is That One Lawyer Podcast. See you next time.